Now, you know that we here on this show love nothing more than highlighting cases of progressives getting mugged by reality. And gosh, have I got a doozy for you this week. Martha's Vineyard. Up until now, this sleepy little island off the coast of Massachusetts has been known as the favorite resort of cashed-up progressive lefties. It is, of course, where the Obamas bought a waterfront compound, oblivious to the threat of rising sea levels. It is where Hillary Clinton spent so much time fundraising in 2016 that she forgot to meet any actual voters. Ew, deplorables, leaving Donald Trump to trounce her in that election. And Martha's Vineyard is, of course, also home to the Ted Kennedy School of Offensive Driving, operating out of the storied Kennedy compound. Ooh. So is it any surprise that the people who call Martha's Vineyard home turn out to be some of the worst people in the world? Of course not! Because by now, pretty much everyone has heard what happened this week when Florida Governor Ron DeSantis sent a plane load of 50 illegal immigrants. And yes, I said illegal because they were undocumented individuals who broke into the country to Martha's Vineyard. The same Martha's Vineyard where in 2017, in response to Donald Trump's election, locals voted to stop local law enforcement officers from working with the feds to deport illegal aliens, and where not so long ago, the island's government put out an official sign stating that we stand with immigrants and refugees. Well, it turns out that they do stand with them. Yep, just so long as they're standing somewhere else. Because the entire town, indeed the entire Democrat establishment, freaked out when Ron DeSantis sent those illegals to Martha's Vineyard. Have a listen to this local rolling out the welcome mat.
At some point in time, they have to move from here to somewhere else, right? We don't have the services to take care of 50 immigrants, and we certainly don't have housing. We're in a housing crisis as we are on this island, and so we can't house everyone here that lives here and works here. We don't have housing for 50 more people.
Now, she wasn't identified, but somehow I have a feeling when that lady was born, her parents named her Karen. And it wasn't just the locals or their government, which declared a humanitarian crisis over just 50 people showing up unannounced and quickly, yes, you guessed it, deported them to a nearby military base, which is, of course, the sort of thing that had Donald Trump done it, would have had Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez having a weepy photo op before you could say kids in cages. Now, though, the tables have turned. A Republican has beaten the left at their own game, and the media is not happy. The Guardian called Florida Governor Ron DeSantis' move un-American, and this time they actually meant it as a bad thing. The Washington Post called it cruel. Well, I mean, I don't know about that, though the Martha's Vineyard lefties whose hypocrisy was exposed probably didn't think it was all that kind. And in a now-deleted tweet, NBC News quoted a left-wing activist who compared DeSantis' move to illegally dumping trash. Ooh. Classy. Yep, that's right. Well, as I always say, when people tell you who they are, believe them. Anyway, forget about those guys, because let's talk about Ron DeSantis. And I think his move of shipping illegal aliens to a left-wing stronghold like Martha's Vineyard was genius. And it shows he is the sort of fighter who would be perfect to take the Republican Party to the 2024 election. Because all he did was what successful political activists always do. He made the other side live up to what they claim to be their principles. Remember, for the left, open borders are a matter of morality. You may have seen my interview with Ami Horowitz on the U.S. Report on this station a few Fridays ago, when he interviewed New Yorkers and found they all agreed with the proposition that borders were abhorrent. To the left, the very idea of having a line on the map and saying you can't come in here without permission is racist, fascist, akin to Nazism, and hell, probably transphobic as well. Yet when you scratch the surface and you discover what they really mean is we are actually happy for illegals to come into the country so long as they are someone else's problem and not in our lefty communities. It's fine for border communities in places like Texas to cope with thousands of illegal migrants a day, they say. And it is fine for the Biden administration to send plane loads to unsuspecting suburbs that need a little help in the diversity department. But when Republican governors like Ron DeSantis do this and send illegals to places like Martha's Vineyard, New York, and Washington, D.C., well, that's another story. Speaking of Washington, here's that city's Mayor Muriel Bowser, who once declared her town a sanctuary for illegals on taking migrants she'd rather not.
We're not a border town. We don't have an infrastructure to handle this type of a level of immigration to our city.
And Washington's own Joe Biden had a few thoughts himself on what governors like DeSantis are doing.
We're committed to fixing the immigration system. Instead of working with us on solutions, Republicans are playing politics with human beings, using them as props. What they're doing is simply wrong. It's un-American. It's reckless.
Come on, man. Listen, Jack, remember, 4.2 million illegals have crossed the border since Joe Biden became president. The rate is now around 200,000 a month. And border agents have been systematically demonized and demoralized by the administration, which we can only presume has plans to offer a mass amnesty at some point in the hope of minting more Democrat voters. I'd say that's probably more un-American than anything Ron DeSantis has in mind. And speaking of Governor DeSantis, here's what he had to say to all this in response.
I also was a little bit perplexed when I heard that the president is scrambling to get his cabinet together to try to address the fact that you have governors who are helping to relocate illegal aliens to sanctuary cities. Now, he didn't scramble to get his cabinet together when we had millions of people illegally pouring across the southern border. It's only when you have 50 illegal aliens end up in a very wealthy, rich sanctuary enclave that he decides to scramble on this.
Ron DeSantis' America or Joe Biden's? Well, I think I know whose America I'd prefer, and given the choice, I think American voters will agree, not just in the midterms in November, but in 2024.